Rise from your grave.
Armatron is out of this world, Mason. Over? Roger. Here comes Ironclaw. What was that? A Zoid. Prepare for battle. Where on earth did you get these super space toys? At Radio Shack. They've got out-of-this-world fun at down-to-earth prices. And a complete selection of Earth games and vehicles, each sold separately, batteries not included. Only at Radio Shack. Over? Roger.
About a year ago, I found this guy sitting at the bottom of a bin in a thrift store. This is the Radio Shack Mobile Armatron robot. The Armatron series was sold at Radio Shack throughout the 80's and I think into the 90's, and it might have even started in the 70's, I don't really know. I do remember them from when I was a kid. I always wanted one. I did never actually get my hands on one until now. Luckily, I'm still childish, and so I'm pretty happy about this. The biggest issue here is that it's dirty as hell, and it is not really functioning. So essentially you have connected by a ribbon cable, although you know what, it's not really a ribbon cable. Anyways, is a control that has basically 10 different functions, I guess. You can go forward, you can go in reverse. You're supposed to be able to turn left and right, and that's not actually working. Whether I don't know if it's supposed to be used in tandem with the forward and reverse, but regardless, it does not work. You have a high and low slider. You have the wrist function here, and I believe that's supposed to open. No, it says that this is supposed to open it, and that's supposed to move it. So there's something going on in there with the gears. Wrist up. Sounds real good, but at least it's functioning. And arm up. So I'm going to pop this thing open. I'm going to give it a good cleaning. I'm going to take care of it, and I am going to get it working. What you probably have in here, I've never had one of these open, obviously, is probably just some little hobby motors that you find in everything. So let's rip this open and see what's in there and see what needs to be replaced. And see if we can just get this guy working at least, let's say at least as well as it would have out of the box in 1984. I'm pretty terrible if I can't get something working the way it did in 1984. In fact, I'm a fucking idiot if I can't. Okay, so we're going to need the robot, obviously. We're going to need some tools. We're going to need my number 1 dad screwdriver. Sorry, number 2 dads out there. And a power supply and a multimeter. The power supply is just there so I don't have to keep on plugging in the batteries to test the motors. And speaking of batteries, check these guys out. D-cell batteries. Used for the coolest, most expensive toys in the 80's and the most vibrating of sex toys as well, when you really wanted to buzz your eyeballs into the back of your brain. Sorry, was that inappropriate? I don't really care. So I actually clipped the battery connections off for the negative lines, but that's only because they looked pretty crappy and they were a little worn, so I don't think they would stick. I'd like to redo them. I'm going to open up the gearbox here to see if the motors are working or what's going on with them. And they both seem to be working just fine, and I think I found my issue here in a cracked gear, so I'll show you what this is. Here we go. See that? These little plastic spur gears, they get hairline cracks in them, and they don't hang onto the shaft of the motor, so you get no resistive force that'll actually allow it to do its job. So I pull apart of a lot of old electronics. You get them out of VCRs, old game consoles, CD-ROM drives, and stuff like that. And then I also just purchased these kind of gear collections. They have all different sizes and stuff like that. You can get them off of Amazon or wherever the hell you feel like ordering them from. They generally have every size you'll need, and even the diameter for the shaft size, especially for the common hobby motors that they have inside of most of these old electronic devices and stuff like that. The only thing you need to remember that if you're changing out a gear, and if you find one that's almost there, but it's a little bigger, a little smaller, and you're off by a tooth or two, or it's a different diameter, you need to replace the other one on the other motor, because if those gears aren't the same size, you're going to have a different gearing ratio on each motor, and it's never going to drive straight or move properly the way it should. And it will make a difference, believe me. So I'm just going to start tearing this thing open. I can tell someone already has done that because the rear decal on the back of the robot has already been split. Like someone didn't bother taking it off, just kind of tore the body in half. But it broke cleanly, so that's not so bad. I know this hand isn't working properly, so something is bound up or broken inside, and it's probably the resistive spring. Those things go pretty easily, but I'm going to take a look at all the wiring, all the motors, and just make sure I'm not going to put this thing back together and it's still not working properly. So they really made it kind of difficult to unscrew some of these. They got these recessed nuts and bolts that are really a pain in the ass to get to, so they take a little bit, but just take your time and be careful. And while I'm at it, I am going to give this thing a deep cleaning. I don't know what the hell people do to these things half the time or where they store them, but sometimes I get them, they look like a cat pissed all over them. I don't know. They're disgusting. Did someone use it as a dinner plate? I have no idea. So I'm going to clean it, get in all those little crevices, get all that shitty dirt out of there, and just take my time with it and do it properly. And I'll also re-grease all the gears and make sure everything's moving properly, and I'm sure I haven't found my last of the broken gears, so I'm prepared to replace them all. Honestly, cleaning these things doesn't take much. It just takes some patience and some time. I use whatever works: Windex, electronics cleaner, rubbing alcohol. It doesn't really matter, whatever gets this garbage out. I tend to just take these cotton swab sticks and break them in half and work out all the dirt and all these little nooks and crannies the designer put in there to make it look more realistic, or whatever the hell he was thinking. He clearly just never took me into consideration after designing this thing, that I would have to, 30 years later, be cleaning this thing out and getting all the dirt out of this crap after I picked it up at a thrift store. It's just inconsiderate. And I didn't really expect much more from him, because I hate that guy, whoever the hell he is. But I knew he was a dick. I just know it. So these Armatron robots were sold exclusively by Radio Shack. I know this one was because it says Radio Shack on it, but I don't think they were rebranded as anything else. I can't really remember. They were developed by Tomy, which was or is some sort of toy company and made a bunch of other stuff like this. I never actually remembered this mobile unit when I saw it. I do remember the more stationary Waldos that sat on top of a table, and it had two little joysticks and you can move it around in 360 degrees. Those seemed, in my memory, to be a little bit more substantial. I just don't remember ever seeing this mobile one, but I'm sure if I did as a kid, I'd think it was pretty cool. But I did want one of the other, non-mobile units. But these are just kind of stupid electronics. There's no processing unit to speak of. There's no programming. The controller is just a series of metal plates that when you depress a button, it'll send voltage to the motor, and when you push the opposite button, it just reverses the polarity, causing the motor to spin the other way. So there's not really any ingenious design here. I think they're creative, and I think they're really cool, but they're nothing like the type of stuff you can get at toy stores these days that are complicated and, people program, or you can program yourself. They're just straight hobby motors and gumption? Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't think that's ever been the word I'm looking for. I don't say that word. it doesn't matter. What matters is that these are not complicated, so don't be afraid to open them up and really dig in there, because there's not much to them, just a couple of motors and some wires. And like I thought, inside the hand, or end effector, depending on how technical you want to get, the resistive spring that holds the hand open was broken, and I also found another gear with a hairline crack, so those being replaced, hopefully that's everything that's the issue. And I'm going to try to get this thing back together here and see if everything works. You know, that reminds me, I did use the term Waldo earlier, and that's just kind of a colloquial term for any type of remote manipulator. It comes from a short story. I forget who wrote it, but it's about a guy who invents a mechanical hand. And that's what this is. It's technically not a robot. It's a remote manipulator. It's just a robotic hand. This one might be classified a little bit differently because it is mobile, but the other ones that are stationary are just remote manipulators, okay? So I don't want to get into it. I'm just going to solder these. That's all I'm going to do. Just solder them real quick. You've seen my shitty soldering skills before, so none of this should surprise you. I lengthened a couple of the wires because, man, they did not leave much room to play with when I was pulling this off. That's also another reason why I really cut them. So, because if I didn't cut them, I probably would have just ended up tearing it off, and that would have caused a bigger problem. I'm going to grease these gears like I said before. That'll kind of cut down on the noise and just keep them from binding up and getting more hairline cracks. So, more wire soldering because I went a little cut crazy. Near the end of the video seems like a good place to tell you that before you start cutting any wires or pulling them apart or anything like that, you should really take pictures or at least write down where they were going, because you don't want to get back to it and forget where things were hooked up. This is kind of second nature to me. I know where things go or where they need to go, but if you don't know, you should really make note of it in some way. So there's my too late warning. Of course, in my other videos, I have told you to watch the entire video first, so it just kind of seems like it's your fault if you hook things up backwards. I mean, you're not going to blow anything up. I mean, the worst you can do is you push forward and the thing moves backwards or whatever, but that's just another reason that you'll have to open the fucking thing up and fix it again. So, hey, waste your time if you want to. I don't care. Speaking of wasted time, once I got everything back together, I found another broken gear inside the elbow, so I had to open everything back up and fix all of that. So now everything should be working properly. So that's another good reason to go ahead and make sure you just check every gear, because honestly, opening these things up over and over again kind of gets tedious and really annoying, but everything works now, so I guess I'm happy. I mean, are you happy? I guess I'm happy. Sure. So, as you can hear, all that grease I put on all the gears really helped, and it's super quiet now, so it's all working. I mean, everything seems to be fine, and nothing's broken. The end effector works properly, and the wrist moves, and, oh my, look at that. Hey, you know, I might have figured out why these things are always so dirty when I find them. That's interesting. Thanks, buddy. This guy and me, we're going to be pretty inseparable. No. We're friends now. we're friends forever. And we can just hang out and do all sorts of things together, huh, buddy? It's gonna be a blast. Well, I've got to tell you, ever since I was a kid, I always wanted a robot friend. You know, like a pal, or like a robotic buddy that I could hang out with. And my life is complete. It's just something I've never had before. I've never had one that was like really cool and just like moved around and did cool things and like whatever, you know? Every robot I've had before this is just stupid. It's just, I don't know. They're worthless, they're dumb, they're gimmicky, they just don't serve a real purpose. You can never really use them. And they're just, I don't know, they're just lame. So I am just so ecstatic, over the moon, that I have this. I'm just so happy. My life is complete. I just can't believe it. I'm just so happy. This blows every robot I've ever had out of the water. I don't even care about it. I don't care about any other robot I have in this house. Not at all. Not even like a little bit. They can all just go to hell now. Just burn in hell. Stupid, worthless, crappy, dumb robots. Burn in hell. And I mean what I said. I don't care about Rob the Robot. I didn't even care about him when I was a kid. I remember people wanting one. And even when I was a kid, I didn't have one. I didn't get that set with the Nintendo. And I just thought it was the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. Anyway, thank you for stopping by Electromancer Tech. I hope you found this video entertaining. If you're fixing your own Armatron mobile, I hope you found it informative and helpful. Though I don't know how you ever would have. At any rate, please subscribe to the channel, and thanks for stopping by, and I will see you here next time on Electromancer Tech.